Hi, Ken1171 here, and in this video, let's talk about a new Python script I have created for Poser 12 called the math edit. Let's launch it here, and this is what it looks like. As you can see, it has a tree view that displays everything on the scene, and this is what we are going to be working with. Since this is a materials editor, let's switch to the materials room. I want to make sure I have the math edit script running in both pages. There you go. And let's start editing. Okay, I have two figures here. They are both Hivewire Dawn with different morphs and characters. And what I'm going to be doing here is demonstrate things you can do with math edit, which is a general materials editor for Poser 12, using these two figures. So first thing, let's take a look on what the materials I have on the first figure look like. As you can see, this is the kind of material you would expect from legacy uh, contents, because it's meant obviously for Firefly, because it's connecting things to alternative fields and specular. And it has some invalid connections like this one here. You can see by the dotted line that this will not work with Superfly. And my rendering engine is set to Superfly like most people are in Poser 12. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to clean up this material so that it works with Poser 12, Superfly. To do that, let's first find things here in the tree view. I'm going to hide the props from this tree view, leaving only the figures, which is this first icon here. If I toggle this off, and then I have nothing in the scene. If I toggle props on, I can only see props. And if I toggle figures on, I can see only figures. And if I toggle both, I can see both figures and props. Okay, let's leave it only with figures. And this is the figure on the left, and this is the figure on the right. So this is Nami, and this is Janet. Let's start with Nami. If I expand her materials here, you will see that this mimics this list over here that you have in Poser. The thing is, with this list, as it is with all Poser versions we have, we can only select a single material at a time and edit only that one. One of the things I did with this script is that, well, we can select as many materials as you want and edit them all at once. So that saves a lot of time. So I'm going to select all the skin materials, right-click and choose Edit. I could do the same by just clicking the Edit button here at the bottom. So when I click this Edit function, you will notice it opens the editor here, which kind of mimics the root nodes in the Poser room. They look more or less the same. They have the same features, but the one from this editor here has more features. Well, first of all, I still have all these materials selected, and everything I'm going to be doing here will affect all these materials at the same time. Let's do a test. First of all, the color on the diffuse color, which is this one over here, is set to blue, which is the blue tint used in legacy contents. I'm going to change this to a skin color, like this one. I'm going to save it on the custom colors and apply. Okay, the color is set now, but it's not applied to the scene. There are many ways I can apply this value to the scene. One is I can click the diffuse color button here. This will only set this change and ignore all the rest. Or I could click apply, which is going to apply all changes I did at the same time and keep the editor open, or I can click OK, which applies everything and closes the editor at the same time. Let's do that. And you'll see that the color has been applied. So as you can see, this is spread over this many material zones, and I have edited all of them together in one pass. That's a huge time saver. All right, let's keep changing the values here. I'm going to set diffuse value to 1, specular color to pure white, specular value to 0.1, highlight size to 0.1. Ambient color, I want to zero it. I don't want any. Ambient value, I'm going to zero it too. Transparency 0. Translucency 0. Refraction color, pure black. I don't want any. 0 here too. Same here. And 0. Bump, I want to change to 0.03. Displacement, we don't have anything plugged into displacement, so this can be 0 too. I'm going to black set the alternate diffuse and specular to black, and I'm going to, let's see, we have all these nodes here connected to these two. I'm going to disconnect them. That's one of the things, those blank buttons here, the ones on the left, they are used if you want to copy values from another field that have the same type, and the ones in the right is to modify the connections you have with the root node. You can do this by input, by copying the input from another node, another input, or you can copy the connection from any of the shader nodes, which are these here, to be plugged into the respective input channel. In this case, I want to disconnect these two. Let's keep going here. Gradient bump. It's not connected, so I can zero it. And that's about it. I'm going to click OK, and that should apply all these changes to all these material zones at once. As you can see here, reflection, no, alternate diffuse and specular, everything has been disconnected from here. All right, let's keep editing. I see that I have a translucence color with an invalid connection plugged, so I'm going to translucent color, which is this one, and I'm going to disconnect whatever is plugged into this. I can apply only this change by clicking this button here, the first column. If I click this button, you'll see it applies the change, only that one. It has disconnected the translucent color from all these material zones I have selected. This button here, clear, is once you have applied the changes on the right side here, you can click clear to remove all of them, so you don't double apply them next time you click apply or OK. All right, let's take a look what we have left. I'm going to close the editor, and with these materials selected, I'm going to click the cleanup button, which is going to remove all the shader nodes that have been disconnected and are now orphan, meaning they're not connected to anything. So cleanup does that. So I end up with these two maps. Let's edit again. Last thing I'm going to do to this character here is I want to connect whatever is plugged to bump here into the specular color and value. So over here, I want whatever is plugged into bump to be plugged here, and the same thing for the specular. Wait, I did a mistake here. Let's disconnect this or unchange it so nothing happens there. And yeah, this is the one I wanted. Specular color and value. I want whatever is plugged into bump to be plugged into these two channels. Let's click OK. And as you can see, the connections have been made. So now I have my complete material. Last thing I want to do is I want to check the gamma values. This one is correct. All the grayscale maps should be set to 1, which is correct, as you can see here. And on the other one, it should be 2.2. Thing is, you don't know what values were used in all these materials here. So as a safe point, what you can do is select all the materials you want and click the gamma button. This will automatically go through all the material zones and search for all the shader nodes that have texture maps and set them to the proper values. You can also click the entire figure and click the gamma button. That does this through the entire figure, which is a huge time saver. All right, I'm done with the skin materials. I'm going to add it quickly here, the fingernail and toenail materials, but let me show you one thing we can do. I'm going to copy one single skin material I have previously edited. I'm going to enable the auto select in scene. So whatever I click here as a material gets selected in the scene. If you want to do this manually, you can select the material zone you want and click the select button. So that does it manually. I'm going to auto select, click these two here, and I'm going to right click and paste only materials. Only the values, which means only the shader node values, and ignore all shader nodes we have other than the root node. So let's do that now. And you'll see it has set all the values from the root node from the materials I had already edited to this one. Okay, let's keep editing. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to leave everything as it is, but I want a kind of a dark red color for the fingernails and toenails. Let's apply that now. They have turned red, as you can see. I'm going to leave everything, here, I'm going to increase the specular value to 0.6. Apply this change. As you can see, change to 0.6. And I want to disconnect alternate specular. Let's go to alternate specular, which is over here, and I want to disconnect. Let's apply this change, and that should disconnect this node. I can close the editor now and click on cleanup. That should remove all the orphan nodes. All right, I'm happy with the materials on this figure. Let's go to the other one. Before I do that, I just wanted to show you here that let's select the other figure, which is Janet, and I'm going to right click and save her materials first. So I can do this to selected materials here, or if I select the figure name, it does it to all materials. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to copy this path over here, and I'm going to save this to Janet. As you can see here, it has created MC6 material collection and the respected thumbnail PNG file. Okay, now to demonstrate a feature, I'm going to right click on the figure we have just created the materials for. I'm going to click copy, and that, my friends, copy the entire set of materials from the entire figure. And I'm going to select Janet and right click and paste all the materials. What I did now is I applied to Janet all the materials from the other figure in one go. As you can see, they now look identical. That's why I saved a preset with Janet so that I can recover the materials I had before. There you go. So that was copy and paste the whole thing to from one figure to another. Let me show you, for example, I could select only the skin materials. Let's copy those. And I can do this in two or maybe three different ways. If I selected those materials, copy them, and paste them, only the skin ones, over the entire figure, what it's going to do, it's going to look at the materials, trying to find matches for the material zone names. And if it finds them, it's going to find, because it's the same figure. Let's paste them. It's going to apply to the respective material names with the same name. So as you can see here, now only the skin materials were copied from one figure to the other. How cool is that? All right, let's restore the materials she had before, and let's edit her materials now. If I look at what we have in the materials right now, I have some ambient occlusion here that I cannot use, but all the rest is going to be okay. So I'm going again to select all the skin materials, edit them. I'm going to change the diffuse color to add some skin color so she doesn't get totally pale. I'm going to edit the specular value, remove any ambient value. I don't want any. And I'm going to disconnect this ambient occlusion from diffuse value, which is here, disconnected, and from specular value, which is here. I'm going to apply all changes, and this should be disconnected now, which means I can clean up the materials, getting rid of the orphans. Okay, let's keep editing. I'm going to edit the bump map. And remember, although what I'm doing here looks pretty similar to what you would do with the materials room on the poser surface itself or physical surface, I am doing this to all the selected materials at the same time. Okay, I have edited the bump map value, and I'm going to connect this map here to specular value as well. So specular value is here. I'm going to connect actually the bump map and here too, because I changed my mind. I'm going to apply, I'm going to leave this unchanged, and I'm going to apply the input I have from specular color, this one. Let's see, apply that, and now I have it plugged to those two. As I only click this button here, it didn't change the bump map that I have edited. So if I click OK, that should apply everything. There you go. Edited the bump map, and everything else I had changed. I'm just going to edit the skin color once more because I want a little darker complexion. Let's apply that. There you go. Much better. I'm going to increase the specular value maybe to 0.3 and see how it goes. Yeah, that's better too. And here you have a demonstration of how I can globally edit multiple materials at the same time. I'm going to copy the fingernails and toenails from the other figure and paste them over Janet. I can just paste it over here, or I can select the two materials I want to affect and paste it over here. It's going to apply them to the matching matte zones by name and order, if they match. In case you are pasting these over another figure where the material names don't match, it's going to apply them, assuming it's the same number, it's going to apply them at least in the same order, um, based on the order they were copied. Okay, now I have shown how to edit, copy, and paste one or multiple materials. Let's save the results I made for this figure to Janet. And you'll see here it has created the material preset. Let me just double check if it did it on the right directory. Yeah, it did. To Janet. All right. And now I have saved all the changes I did before. Let's take a look on other features that have been incorporated into this editor. Copy and paste you already saw. Reset. I'm going to copy the entire Janet materials, and let's say I'm going to select some parts of the skin. I'm going to click the reset button and take a look what happens. It zeroes out all the materials, removes all the shader nodes, leaving only the root node, a bare zeroed out grayscale root node, as you can see here. And since I copied this, I can just come here and paste it back. You'll see I'll instantly recover everything. So it's you can copy everything or the selected ones you want for testing things like this. In case you want to do changes, you're not sure if you want them, you can always copy and paste them back if you don't like it. Okay, so that was reset. Cleanup removes disconnected orphan shader nodes. We already used that. Edit, we already use it too. Select selects the whatever I click on the scene. It has an auto select option if you don't want to do it manually. Okay, collapse. Let's take a look on the arms material here, and that's the one I have selected. I'm going to select the entire arms textures, material zones, and I'm going to click collapse. As you can see, I already have collapsed the inputs as they were. This button here collapsed the inputs, and this one collapses or expands the preview. So as they are now, everything is collapsed, except for the root node where everything is expanded. Well, this button here controls those things, but to all material zones you have selected. So if I click collapse, I can affect only the root nodes by collapsing or expanding the selection. Everything that is not a root node, which means those over here, like for example, let's expand the inputs. And that's exactly what happened. And if you look, it has affected all three material zones I had selected. Let's select them back and try another one. Oh, remember, everything you can do with the buttons here, you can also get from the context menu that you get from right-clicking the selection. This time I'm going to only affect the root nodes, and I want to collapse the previews over here. And that's what you do with this button. Now, Cascade, it's something that does a lot more. If you have worked with materials for long enough, you may notice that sometimes the root node is completely off screen, and the other shader nodes may also be completely off screens. And when you go to the materials room, you end up with something like this. To help with things like this, and I have three matte zones selected to apply this to, I have created the cascade button, and it does a lot of things. Let's click it once here, and you'll see that instantly the root node was moved to the origin, and all connected shader nodes are cascaded next to it on the right. No matter how many you have, they would all be laid out like this. Like for example, let's put the root node out of screen and all the root nodes also all are off screen, and click the cascade button, and they all get laid out automatically in this compact view. That's handy when you have some materials where for some reason they are completely off screen or messed up or scattered all over the place. All right, you can also apply this to the entire figure by clicking the figure name and cascade. That does this to all material zones on the figure or prop. The gamma button has been covered. All right, let's take a look on the maps button. Let's select the arms again and click on maps. What it does here, it goes through this material room, these matte zones, and it collects all the texture maps that it finds. It found 3 of them here. Those are all image maps, as you can see here. Those are all image maps. So it collects them and lets you, for example, I want to replace the specular map. The default place where it goes is where the original map is located at. And if you select a texture you want and click OK, this will replace that texture map or all others you have selected to be replaced in one go. That's very time saving. Now, fix bump is an old issue we have with legacy materials where the bump map, this one, sometimes it comes connected to, instead of being plugged into bump, it comes connected to gradient bump. And this is how it's set up with most legacy contents. Because in the past, Poser used something called a gradient bump, which I believe doesn't even exist anymore. So if you select the materials or the entire figure and click the fix bump, take a look what happens here. It reconnects the bump map to the right place and keeps the value that was used there. I'm going to change this, better do this here because then it applies to all my selected material zones instead of having to do that 3 times. I'm going to change it back the value, click OK, and it applies to all 3 materials. And that was the fix bump. Now, one last one is the filtering method. I'm going to expand these 3 here, and I want you to take a look on this option here, which is the filtering for image maps, texture maps. You have 4 options here, and the reason this was put here is to avoid textures to show artifacts when rendered. And the quality actually is the default, and it may add blur to texture maps when it tries to avoid artifacts in renders. In some cases, you don't want textures to be blurred. For example, in eyelashes that have very fine detail, and you don't want that to be blurred. What you can do is select the textures you want and click on filtering, and then you'll see the same menu you'll see there here too. And I'm going to change it to crisp, and you will notice that all selected material zones and respective texture maps in all of them are changed to whatever you want here, which is a huge time saver instead of having to go them one by one. Don't forget, um, I have been only working with figures here, but you can also do the same to props. So I have changed the filters to only show props. Everything I did with figures can also be done to props. Um, Let me talk one last thing, I believe is the last thing. Um, let's get Janet here selected, and I'm going um, to get this iris. No, not the iris, the pupil. That's the one I want. And I'm going to delete all these shader nodes and set it to a pure black. Actually, I want it to be black, but it's not giving me black. I have to get here. All right. Set it all to black because pupils don't have any kind of texture or reflectant, so they should be pure black. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to copy this material, and I want to show some interesting ways that you can paste this on other places. For example, if I paste it over the bikini, I can select materials or just paste it over everything. It's going to copy this material, it's going to paste this material over every single material, no matter what zone name it has or how many it has. Um, I'm going to do this over Janet by selecting some parts here, and I'm going to paste. And you'll see that when you copy only a single material zone, you can paste it over any number of matte zones. And it doesn't matter what they're named, because if you copy one and when you paste it, it's going to replace whatever is selected. If I do this over the entire figure, you'll see that the entire figure gets the material copied, which means everything has become the simple black. Let me restore Janet. That's the reason why I used her, because I have saved her materials, so I can restore them very quickly. If I, on the other hand, select only these ARM materials, let's copy it. And if I paste it over another figure, what it's going to do is going to look for the material zones, try to find matching ones, and apply them only to those. Let's do that here on Nami. Only the arms, and you see that only the arms have been replaced, meaning that the paste is smart. It's intelligent. It checks what was copied, then it analyzes where you're pasting it, it does some thinking, and does uh, things that make sense. Conversely, I could get, for example, the legs, which is here, the legs and feet, and try to paste this. Remember, I have copied 3 materials, and I'm trying to paste them over 2 matte zones. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's going to say that, hey, you copied 3, you have to paste it over 3. So the numbers must match. So that's another intelligent analysis that Paste does before it does anything else. It checks if the numbers match. The only exception to this is when, for example, if you copy only one single material, like I did here, then you can paste it over any number of material zones. That's the only exception. But if you copy more than one, you can only paste it over the same number elsewhere. If the names match, uh, you can do it over the whole figure. It's going to try to match. If it doesn't find matching, what it's going to do, which means, for example, you try to paste from Dawn to Wiki4, which have incompatible material zones, you could force the material to be pasted like this. I'm going to select these 3, and I'm going to force it to be pasted. As long as the number is the same, it's going to work. And what I did here, I messed things up because I copied arm materials over the torso, which of course, it was not meant to be. Let me restore it. So that's what I wanted to show, that there are some rules about copy and pasting, depending on what was copied, the number of things you have copied, the way you pasted, or the number of selections you have when you paste, different things will happen. And that's what I call the smart copy and pasting. Last thing I want to say is, as usual with my scripts, you have a question mark here that opens, it launches the PDF manual, which you can launch at any time, and it has details about everything I have explained here, and you can get it from a handy place here on the corner at any time. And that's what I wanted to show you. Thanks for watching.